joining us today. We are going to hang out for just a minute or two to make sure that everyone can join and get settled in. So feel free to grab a snack, maybe a beverage, just get comfy for what is going to be a great hour together. I am coming to you from our lovely office here in Bozeman, Montana, where it has been cold and snowy to start out the new year. Kathleen, how are you? Where are you at today?
I am in beautiful, sunny San Diego, where it's about 75 degrees right now. So I am not jealous of your weather right now.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. Is 75 like feel cool though? Like, can you go sun tanning or is that still on the cool end
I don't
scale?
think you can go sun tanning now,
I would
but
make it
it's still
work.
pretty warm.
I love it. How has your new year started?
How has my New Year started?
Hmm.
Really great. I started off the New Year's at the Rose Bowl game. My alma
Oh my
mater,
gosh.
University of Utah, was playing Ohio State, and it was a phenomenal game all the way to the end. It was my first time at the Rose Bowl Stadium, so I had a great start to the year.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so amazing. Well, MSU did play in the FCS championship game this year. It did not go as well, but it
Oh,
was still really great to be there. So, sounds like we both started off with football.
yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know you were a football fan.
Yes, absolutely. Well, perfect. So we're just past the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Amy Arno, and I am a lead business development specialist on the XYPN sales team. Today, I am thrilled to host this webinar, Refining Your Client Service Model with XYPN Financial Planning and Process Coach Kathleen Boyd. I do want to point out just a few housekeeping items if you get us to that slide, Kathleen. So on the right, the top tab that you see is the chat function. Below that is the Q&A module. So if you do have any questions for Kathleen throughout the presentation, please submit them there. We will also do a couple of polls today. So when you are prompted, please go to the third tab on the right to answer any of the questions that we have for you. So one last quick reminder, we do host these free webinars the first Wednesday of every month. So be sure to register for next month's webinar, Advice Advisors Need to Hear. Master your personal and professional well-being in 2022 with XYPN Director of Advisor Education, Corey Lennon. And we will post a link to register for that in the chat. So that's it for me. Kathleen, I will now turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Amy. Hello, everyone on the call. I hope you all are doing well. As Amy mentioned, my name is Kathleen Boyd, and I am the resident financial planning and process coach here at XY Planning Network. And I work as part of a broader team here at XY called the Advisor Education Team. Our team consists primarily of coaches who support members with various aspects of their business, from sales, marketing, business operations, and financial planning. And our team includes other specialists who help support the design and lead the strategy of our curriculum. Aren't we the cutest team you have ever seen? So if you come aboard as an XYPN member, we're going to help you launch, grow, and run a thriving fee-for-service financial planning firm. You would get access to our team and our resources, from preparing to launch your firm to hiring your first teammate. We support our members' success through online coaching, practice management webinars, a variety of webinar series, and training on the technology. So just something to keep in mind there. Before we dig into the details about refining your service model, one of the things I wanted to talk about is here what we call here at XY the firm journey, because we realized from working 8+ years now with members that not all members start at the same juncture of their firm journey. And so from working with members, we have identified 4 phases that they typically go through. And we thought it was important to identify sort of these critical junctures in the process so that we could customize our resources specifically to where they're at in the process. So we narrowed it down to preparing, implementing, building, and scaling. And so members that are in the preparing phase, for example, they have not yet launched their firms. Some of them might be in the process of going through that initial registration. And while they're doing that, they're working behind the scenes to prepare their business for launch. Our members that are in the implementing phase, they have launched. They've probably nabbed their first few clients, and they're just really working on refining their processes and preparing their firms to grow and scale. Our building members, they are a little bit more established. They've got around 25 to 50 clients. They're growing. And they're getting close to that capacity wall where they have to start making some big decisions about whether they're going to stay a solo practitioner or whether they're going to expand and become a boutique or perhaps an enterprise. And then we have our scaling members. These are some of our most successful members we have in the network. They've got 75 plus clients. They've gotten over that capacity wall, and they've decided whether they're going to stay solo, go boutique at enterprise, and they're just really focused on growing their business more and increasing their efficiencies. So I would really like to know, for those who are on this call, where do you feel like you are currently at on this firm journey? Are you preparing, implementing, building, or scaling? And we're going to release a poll to get that information.
Yep, absolutely, everyone. So that poll is visible now. Just a reminder, it is the third tab down on the right. And right now, it looks like, Kathleen, the majority of our participants today are in the preparing phase. Next from that, we have scaling. And then, kind of tied right now, we have building and implementing. So looks like most folks are just working on that initial registration phase.
Interesting. So that probably means that those members in that, or folks in that phase, are probably working on building their service model instead of refining it. But we do have some folks in the implementing, building, scaling phase that probably already have, I would surmise, already have an existing service model, and they're really focused on refining that. So great. Regardless of where you are at in this journey, this presentation is for you, and there's always work to do when it comes to building and refining your service model. So let's get back down to the basics. What do we mean by a service model? Well, a service model, that is the way that you provide financial planning to your clients. And there are many benefits to having a good service model. We find that it provides stability and consistency. And these are two things that are going to give you a better client experience. I like to compare a good service model to the Starbucks experience. Now, I don't know if there are any regular Starbucks patrons on this call, but I love Starbucks. And I love it because every time I go, I know I'm going to get a high quality, high value experience. Every time I walk into a Starbucks, I know that I'm going to be greeted with a smile and somebody with a positive attitude. I know that when I order my favorite drink, which is a grande caramel frappuccino, I know that it is going to taste the same, whether I get it from a location here in San Diego where I live, whether I travel out to New York City and buy it from a location there, or whether I travel abroad and buy the drink somewhere overseas. That is the level of consistency that Starbucks is known for. I know that all of the employees are going to be trained really well, and they're going to be knowledgeable on the product offerings anytime I may have a question. Okay, and so while you're not going to be slinging grande caramel frappuccinos, what you are going to be slinging, and hopefully what you're going to be slinging, is high value, high touch client service and high quality financial planning. So as you start thinking through your service model, whether you're building it from scratch or you're refining an existing one, I would start thinking about it from the context of Starbucks. How can I make my service model have that consistency and that stability, so that every time my clients come to me, they know what to expect. They know they're going to get quality client service. They know they're going to get great financial planning every single time. We have also found that when you have a clear-cut vision of your service model, you'll be able to determine appropriate pricing. And I can't emphasize enough how important that is, because what we have found is that advisors tend to underprice their services in the beginning stages of their firm. And that's probably because they didn't have a well thought out, well planned service model to begin with. So, why should you refine your service model? Well, you should refine it because one, it improves the value you provide to clients. As the financial advice industry continues to evolve, what I'm seeing, and I'll show you some actual data on this in the next slide here, but what we're seeing is a steady increase in the different types of services that financial planners offer to their clients. I think gone are the days where you could just be an AUM advisor just doing portfolio management. We are finding that clients value a variety of services because that means they can find a planner who offers exactly what they need. A good service model also ensures consistency with your firm. Instead of having to recreate the wheel for every single client, a good service model enables you to establish a process that every single client is going to go through, and that's going to ensure that consistent service. It can also help with streamlining and creating efficiencies as your firm scales. And then it helps you identify aspects of the planning that perhaps you didn't emphasize enough, or perhaps you've overemphasized. So from many of our members, they come from the AUM world where they were doing investment management, and perhaps they weren't focused on planning, or maybe they were doing what I call financial planning light. And maybe they've decided, their passions, their skill sets are more centered around financial planning, and maybe they don't want to do the day-to-day investment management. By taking a deeper look at your service model and identifying what it is you really want to be doing and what you don't want to be doing, it allows you to do that, which leads me to my last point here. Refining your service model allows you to learn what type of work you enjoy and what you don't enjoy, so you can focus on what it is you do enjoy. So, as I mentioned before, the financial advice industry, as it continues to evolve, we're starting to see a steady increase in the different types of services that financial planners offer to clients. And we actually have data to back this up. So, one of the things we do here at XYPN is we conduct what we call an annual benchmarking study. And we hire a practice management consultant, the ensemble practice, to come in and survey some of our members to get a feel for how they're doing and what are some of the factors that are contributing to their success. One of the data points we like to see is the services that members are currently offering to clients. And so that is what you're seeing on this screen here. And what we have found are the top 5 services that our members are offering are retirement planning, discretionary investment management, tax planning, investment advice, and cash flow and budgeting advice. Uh, Other services that our members are offering are estate planning, insurance planning, employee benefits advice, health insurance, credit card and short term debt planning, planning for your kids' college education, career advice, tax prep, student loan planning, business consulting and support, and trust services. Okay. So it's a wide variety there. And I think a really good point to bring out is we can't serve everybody. We need to keep that in mind. Even if we wanted to, that is not an efficient way to run a business. And so, if we were to serve everybody who came in and wanted to work with us, our service model will have to constantly change in order to accommodate the needs of different types of clients. And this leads me to my next point, which is the power of a niche. Now, we've had a number of members come on to the XYPN radio podcast and talk about how their firms experienced rapid growth due to their niche and targeting their marketing efforts to their ideal client. And we've got some data to back this up as well. So another data point we collect in our benchmarking study is compound revenue growth of both niche and non-niche firms over the past 2 years. And so firms that actually have a niche focus, we saw that their compound revenue growth grew 42%. Firms that did not have a niche, they still experienced revenue growth, but not as much at 37%. Another data point that illustrates this point is the annual revenue change of niche and non-niche practices in 2019 by growth phase. So let me start to the right here with the scaling members. Okay, so like I said before, the scaling members, they are more advanced. They've jumped over that capacity wall and they're growing. So the dark blue bar that represents firms with a niche focus, and then the light blue bar are firms that do not have a niche focus. We have found for members in the scaling phase, those that had a niche saw revenue change of almost $87,000 in 2019, compared to the non-niche firms of the scaling members. Their revenue change was 58,000, much lower. When we looked at the building members, the growth was actually almost even kill, with the niche focused firms edging out a little bit higher at 33,000 compared to about 31,000 with the no niche firms. But then when we start looking at the firms who are implementing, so these are firms who have just launched and they just nabbed their first few clients. We're seeing a switch. Actually, the firms that did not have a niche had higher revenue change than those that had a niche. So what does this tell us? It tells us that actually a niche might not matter as much when you're first starting out. And that sort of makes sense, because what we find with members who have just launched is they're taking any and everybody. They're trying to survive. They're trying to eat, and they're taking any and everybody to generate revenue. And that might be okay in the beginning. However, as your business starts to grow and scale, niching stronger as your firm grows. When you niche stronger as your firm grows, then people refer you or can identify you with your business focus and your area of expertise. So in the beginning, niching might not be as important, but it increasingly becomes more important as you continue to grow and scale your firm. So I'd like to send out another poll. Have you all been thinking about targeting a niche, or perhaps you already have a niche? I would love to know. So let me know in this next poll that Amy is going to bring up for you.
Great. Yep. Should just be visible now for everyone. Again, the third tab down on the right. We'll start seeing some results here in just a second. So looks like so far we've got career stages is the lead as of now. Let's see. Oh, we've got interest specific also. Professional area, I can imagine like doctors, lawyers, dentists.
Yeah.
Let's see, none just took the lead. So folks are still thinking about it. And age-based is another big one as well.
Oh, perfect. Nice. Yeah. And that's what we're seeing with some of our most successful members within the scaling phase, as you're seeing with this graph here. We surveyed our scaling advisors to see what is their niche, and what are some of the most common niches, excuse me. The number one top niche for scaling advisors was professionals. So working with doctors and attorneys, for example, has worked really well for a lot of our members. In second place came age-based. A lot of our members work with the millennial population. Tied for third place was interest-specific, culture-specific, and other. And then we have career stages and life events. So there are a variety of niches out there. Some are even untapped. And so part of building a great service model is really identifying what is your firm's niche? What is that target client that you really enjoy working with and that you're good at working with? So another piece to building out a service model is your fee model. I strongly believe that fee models and service models go hand in hand. And I could talk all day about fee models. That in and of itself is another webinar. But I just want to do a sort of just a brief review of some of the most common fee models that we see our members incorporating. The number one fee model, again, and this is across the industry, it continues to be the most popular fee model, is the assets under management, the AUM model. It is the most popular way for advisors to charge for financial planning because it's easy. It involves directly deducting your fee from the client's investment accounts. It avoids custody issues because you're not the one deducting the fee. Typically, it's a third-party custodian like a TD Ameritrade or Schwab that is deducting the fee. Advisors love AUM because of the high margins. You know, your fee is pegged to market movements. So as the market increases or goes up, so does your fee. That doesn't happen with any other fee model. But also keep in mind, if you're going to go the AUM route, the IRS has restrictions on deducting financial planning fees from retirement accounts. So if you're going to be doing mostly financial planning for clients, it might you're not going to be able to deduct your fee from their retirement accounts. You might be able to do it from their brokerage, depending on how big the brokerage account is. If it's a small brokerage account, having deducting a fee from there, they might not be able to absorb that fee. And so if you're charging for financial planning, often what we see is we see members deducting it from the client's bank accounts. And we have platforms like Advice Pay, for example, that help facilitate that. Another thing with doing assets under management when you're doing financial planning is often what I see members do or advisors do is they sort of wrap the financial planning in with the portfolio management and sort of market it as free financial planning. I kind of view that to be problematic. One, because financial planning is not free. It is a very valuable service. It is time intensive, it is labor intensive, and I believe every advisor should be getting paid for it. But when you market or position it as something free, the client tends to value it less. Another fee model is the hourly or project based model, which is another common model within for our members. And one way that advisors charge is simply to just bill the client for the hours they spend working for the client. Advisors, now, if you're going to use this fee model, you've got to have a really good time tracking system in order to keep up with the number of hours you are working for that specific client. There are pros and cons to the hourly and project-based model. The first one is you're not getting recurring revenue like you're doing with AUM. Okay, this is a one-time thing. And so to be successful under this model, you've got to be a hustler. Okay, you have to be really good at business development and you've got to like it, constantly hustling for new clients in order to generate revenue. One of the also cons of hourly or project-based, from what I've heard, is that the hourly clients, they tend to come to advisors in crisis mode. So if you don't like constantly working with clients who are in crisis, this might not be the fee model for you. And then another common fee model is the subscription retainer model. Many of our advisors charge a recurring flat fee to the client based on variables that they believe are relevant. So this could be a combination of net worth and income, for example. That's the last RA that I worked for. That's how we were charging. And it increases access to your financial planning services because now the clients do not have to have a certain level of assets that commiserate an AUM fee. They can come to you with absolutely no assets as long as they have decent income to be able to afford your financial planning fee. The subscription retainer model might be a good way to go. And we also find that it's the way it's a highly favored model because it goes in line with how clients typically pay their other bills anyway. It's one of the reasons why we call it the Netflix model, because folks pay their next Netflix bill on a monthly basis. They pay their phone bill on a monthly basis. They pay their car note on a monthly basis. So why not pay for financial planning on a monthly basis as well? And then there's the combination. Don't feel like you have to be beholden to any one fee model. Many of our members have multiple fee models. In fact, I've seen some members do a subscription or retainer model for the financial planning. And then if the client has any assets they want managed, the advisor may charge a nominal AUM fee to help them manage it. So keep in mind, you can get as creative with you as you want with this, and you can select multiple fee models to help support your service model. Another important takeaway here that I want you to walk away with is what you offer and how you price it should be aligned with who you serve. I think this is such an incredibly important point because, for example, if your target clientele, if you've identified your target clientele are doctors, then your service model and how you charge and what you charge is going to look very differently than working with, let's say, new college grads, for example. Um, a doctor, for example, doctors tend to have high incomes, and so they might have assets, the level of assets that warrant an AUM fee. A new college grad who is starting off fresh with no assets, perhaps they even have student loan debt, the AUM fee might not be an appropriate model for them. Okay. And so another example of this is an AUM fee might be appropriate for somebody who's in the accumulation phase, not so much for somebody who's in the decumulation phase. And so really just underscoring the importance of identifying your niche or your target market, and then aligning your service model and your fee model to match with what are the needs of your target clientele. One of the things that I like to encourage members to do is once you've identified your target clientele, go meet with somebody within your target market. Invite them out for a coffee or lunch and ask them questions about what they would look for in a financial planner. What kind of financial planning services do they value? And what are they willing to pay for that? I bet you anything that you would get a lot of valuable information from that conversation. Now, a service model is not just about pricing, but it's also about how you deliver your services. And we have found there are three primary ways to do this: a one time plan, a module delivery, or modular creation. And so, a one time plan that involves the advisor does a discovery meeting, they gather the data, they create the entire plan upfront, and then they deliver it to the client. Now, that financial plan could include implementation. So that means you're actually going to help the client implement the recommendations you've given them, or it could involve no implementation. So you are hands off on the implementation side, and the onus is on the client to go and implement the recommendations you've given them. Another common service model delivery method is modular delivery. And this is where you have created the plan up front, but you may deliver it piecemeal over the course of several meetings. Okay. And then there's modular creation. And this is something that the last RIA that I worked for, this is what we did. Each meeting basically covers a major financial planning topic and addresses that information. And so you organize these meetings so that by the end of year one or the end of year two, you have covered all aspects of the client's financial planning life. And the firm that I worked for, as I mentioned before, they're a great example of this. We did modular creation where once the client signed on, we take them through a year-long process. And every 2 months, we would cover a major financial planning topic. And we spread it out over the course of 2 months because, one, it gives the client time to process what was talked about in the prior meeting. And it also gives both you as the advisor and the client time to implement the recommendations. Now, as a financial planning and process coach here at XY, one of the things that I help our members do is create what we call a client service calendar. A client service calendar is a tool that I believe every advisor should have in their tool belt because it helps eliminate that question from clients of what have you done for me lately? The fact of the matter is, as financial planners, the work that we do is shadow work. The clients don't see it. The only time they really see it is when they meet with us 1, 2, 3, 4 times a year, and when we're presenting them deliverables in that meeting. But outside of the meetings, they're not really seeing all the work we're putting into them throughout the remainder of the year. And so, what a client service calendar does, it makes the intangible tangible by visually showing the client how you're going to be, what you're going to be doing for them from January to December, outside, both in the meetings and outside of the meetings. We also find that a good client service calendar leads to more efficiencies, especially if you're building out workflows from the client service calendar, something that I also help our members with, to help, again, increase operational efficiencies. We also find that a client service calendar enables firms to better track service work so that you know what's upcoming for a client, what you need to be working on, and what you have already done. I also find that a client service calendar is an excellent business development tool. You can use a client service calendar to show a prospect, for example, how you could potentially work with them, and what kind of services you would provide, and at what times throughout the year you would be doing different things. So what you're seeing right here, this is a great example of a year one client service and communications calendar. As you can see, it is very well organized and color coded. At the bottom of the calendar, you'll note a legend that shows the major financial planning categories, from income tax planning to retirement planning and such. And then they're color coded. So all the colors that you actually see in the calendar align with what that legend is. So, for example, income tax planning in the legend is blue. So all the blue activities in the client service calendar are all related to income tax planning. And it's all detailed and spelled out from January to the end of December. You've got your client meetings on there. You've got all of your recurring items on there. And this is what we typically recommend members have. And I do conduct workshops to show members exactly how to put together their own client service calendar. I also do one-on-one coaching for members that need individualized attention on putting together a client service calendar. And I know probably most of you on this call, you've likely spent already adequate time thinking about your service offerings for marketing and sales purposes. However, when you refine your service model by building a service calendar, you're going to find that you improve your client experience through increased consistency, accountability, and productivity. And I know that was kind of hard to read. It's very small. If you want to see another example of a great client service calendar, Michael Kitces has one. I would just Google Michael Kitces client service calendar. And so you'd be able to see a bigger version of what a client service calendar looks like. But if you were an XYPN member, you would actually get a template of this that you could customize based on your firm's service offerings. Now, how would you go about creating your own client service calendar? Well, before you even start thinking about the client service calendar, I encourage members to start first thinking about what kind of work life balance do you want? As business owners, you are all in a unique position to create a business that is centered around the kind of life you want to live. Okay. So I would start by outlining what are your professional commitments, whether that's continuing education goals, client work, business management growth. And then think about what type of personal goals you have that aren't work related. Perhaps you have wellness goals, family oriented goals, hobbies, fun. We find that having a fulfilling personal life, that is going to give you the motivation and the energy you're going to need to keep building a business you love, especially when things get hard. A second step that I would recommend is to start thinking about how your business can help achieve all of these goals. So, for example, if your goal is to travel the world, you might want to consider incorporating virtual only meetings in your service model. Okay. Or if you're like my former boss, he was very adamant about keeping holidays quiet. He didn't want any client meetings the month of November or December during the holidays. Okay. So that means your client service calendar should not offer up any client meetings during that time. And then the third thing that I would do is reverse engineer my client service calendar. So once you have your professional and personal goals set, start blocking time on your calendar to achieve those goals. Okay. So if one of your goals is spending more time with your family and that's a priority to you, maybe plan on having a slow season in the summer, or consider adjusting your schedule so you only have a 4 day work week, or you only take meetings 1 to 2 days a week, or perhaps you have certain times of the year where you dedicated to surge meetings, for example. And then last, if you already have a client service calendar, consider revamping it if it's not currently matching your lifestyle goals. It is okay to pivot your business and streamlining your calendar to support your lifestyle needs. It does not have to be a bad thing for clients. So if you become an XYPN member, one of the exercises I'll have you go through is identifying your service offerings. And typically, what I encourage members to do is to identify the top 5 core service offerings. For many of our members, this is financial planning, tax planning, investment planning, events and education, and such. And additionally, you might offer other core services like financial coaching or life planning. But this is really the first step you should take to building that client service calendar that really reflects your expertise. Once you have your service offerings identified, then I encourage members to think through your client contact and meeting frequency. Are you going to be meeting in person, virtually, or maybe a combination of both? We also find that in that first year of working with the client, financial planning services tend to be top heavy. So if you're building out a year one service calendar, for example, those numbers might be a little bit higher in the first year because you're meeting with the client more. But if you're building an ongoing if you're building an ongoing client service calendar, then your meeting frequency will tend to be a little bit less. It's likely going to follow a quarterly or a semi-annual meeting cadence. Um, the next step is then to break down your service offerings. So you can get more specific about what it is you provide. And I can't underscore enough how important this is, because I think long gone are the days where you could just say, I do comprehensive financial planning as sort of a differentiator. Everybody and their mama is claiming to do comprehensive financial planning these days. I just saw a commercial for Northwestern Mutual where they claim, and this is an insurance brokerage, they sell whole life insurance policies, variable annuity policies all day long, and they are now claiming to do comprehensive financial planning. Now, whether that's true or not, I personally believe is highly questionable. But the point I'm making here is the phrase comprehensive financial planning has become so hackneyed. It's used as a marketing strategy now, and it almost is meaningless when firms use it. So you've got to get really specific about what are the unique services that your firm is offering as part of your service model. And so that's why I have members go through this exercise. So if you say you do financial planning, what exactly does that mean? Does that mean that you are addressing all the principal knowledge topics found in the CFP board curriculum? Perhaps you have a specialized degree or a certification. Maybe you have a master's in taxation, or you're an enrolled agent and you enjoy doing tax planning for clients. Highlight that. That is a unique service. Maybe you're a registered life planner. That is an amazing service offering that most advisors are not offering. So again, get really specific about what it is about your service model that is really unique. Once you've identified all of your service offerings, I have members go down the list and identify which service offerings are either time specific, recurring, or neither. Okay, and this is really important when it comes to creating your service calendar, because the first step is to identify, well, what are those time specific items on the calendar, because those are what are going to go on the calendar first. So what do I mean by time specific items? So I'm talking about things like tax return reviews. That has to be done anywhere between January and April. Okay, that's time specific. I'm talking about open enrollment, helping a client review their employee benefits. That typically happens, it varies depending on the company, but it typically happens towards the end of the year. Also, end of year tax planning, again, happens at the end of the year. So these are all time specific activities that need to go on your client service calendar first. And then you're going to have items that are recurring. So these are services, these are activities that happen on a monthly, quarterly basis, and so on. An example of this is cash flow and budgeting. Okay, we have members who do cash flow and budgeting for clients, and they do so on a monthly basis. Or perhaps it could include, sending out a monthly newsletter or a blog post or a market update. So make sure you have your recurring items in there as well. And then you're going to have some activities that are neither time specific or recurring. Insurance planning is a great example of that. That can happen any time of the year. Estate planning can happen whenever you choose. And so there are a lot of benefits to sort of batching financial planning, and a service calendar is a great way to create those boundaries and really set expectations. Okay. And so once you have all of this outlined, then you are able to successfully build a client service calendar. As I mentioned before, members actually get Excel templates of the client service calendar that they can customize and make changes to it as they see fit, or you can create your own from scratch. Now, after members have completed this exercise and they've completed a first draft of their client service calendar, I encourage them to ask three essential questions. The first being, is my client service calendar transparent? Okay, will my prospects be able to understand it during an initial consultation or a prospect meeting? As an advisor, can I communicate it effectively and transparently? Is my client service calendar realistic? Okay. Will it create client buy-in? Does it motivate prospects and clients to work with me? And then third, is it scalable? Incredibly important if your goal is to grow your business. Can your business take on unexpected growth under the service model you've built? Are you able to work through the calendar simultaneously with clients in different stages? So to wrap up this presentation, so some of the main takeaways here when it comes to refining your service model is, it is important to identify your firm's niche or target client. It might not be as important when you're first starting off, but if you really want to see significant revenue growth, we have find that as you grow and scale, developing a niche becomes really important. Also, structure your service offerings. It's a good idea to identify what are those top five core service offerings, and then what are sort of the sub offerings underneath that. And then we talked about the importance of visually illustrating your services through something called a client service calendar that brings the shadow work out of the shadows and makes the intangible tangible, so the client can visually see the value that you are bringing to them throughout the entire year and not just in client meetings. And then last but certainly not least, it's really important to communicate your expectations with clients. I'm a huge fan of client engagement standards. I use that in my last role as an advisor. And that's a simple document that we present to new clients that explains basically what they can expect from us during the engagement, as well as some things that we can expect from them, again, to keep expectations aligned. And that is all that I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining us. And I would love to take some time to answer any questions you might have.
Great, Kathleen. Thank you. That was so interesting. So we do have a couple. I've got one here that is, they would like to know they are new to XYPN in support of an advisor. They do operations and tech stuff. Can they speak to a coach to see where they can get specific info? So I'm hoping, Kathleen, you can just speak broadly to how XYPN members can engage to you and, what your coaching offers to them as a member.
Yeah, so there are many ways to engage with us. You can always email us. You can email me directly if you want to connect with me. My email is kathleen.boyd@xyplanningnetwork.com. You can also email membership at xyplanningnetwork.com, and you will get connected to one of our relationship managers who can connect you to one of our coaches, whether you want to work with me or perhaps a sales coach or our executive business coach. There are a variety of ways to get in touch with us. We try to be as accessible to members as possible. And what was the second part of that question, Amy?
They just want to know where they can get specific info. So I was thinking about, the self-guided trainings that you have in the XYPN Academy and the
Yeah.
checklists and, templates that you offer there.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you for bringing that up, Amy. So XYPN Academy, that is sort of our online portal that all of our members have access to, that where they can download, view all of the curriculum that we have customized specifically for members. There are recorded webinars in there. There are workshops. There are templates you can download. There's just a treasure trove of resources at XYPN Academy. So I definitely recommend checking that out. But if you have trouble finding something specifically that you need, go ahead and email me and I will help you and try to find it for you.
Perfect. Then we got a couple about people wanting to be able to see your client service plan more closely, which we know is a benefit of membership, but we did put in the chat a link to Kitsis's blog post about that has a sample in that. So for everyone with that question, please check out that resource. Obviously, he knows his stuff as well. And then we've got another one here of, is there an example of an client engagement form?
There is not one currently, but that is a project that I would like to work on this year, sort of drafting a template that members could use and customize. So that is on the list of resources to create. I don't know if any other advisors have anything floating out there online. Maybe if you Google client service or client engagement standards, if anything pops up, but I would try that, but do expect to have something coming from our team sometime this year.
Perfect. I would also add another good place maybe to look for that would be the VIP Facebook group that we
Mm.
have. Members and non-members are welcome to join that. It's a closed group. You just got to answer a couple questions and then we'll approve you to join that. There's a ton of advisors in the industry there that have all sorts of information. So you could post and ask for that. And I would bet you someone there has that.
Great tip.
Perfect. Okay, so next, how do I deliver financial guidance in a one-to-many format?
That is a wonderful question, a one-to-many format. So the way that I have seen advisors do that is through something called group financial planning coaching, essentially. And we have a former XYPN member. I don't know if you all are familiar with this company. They're called Brunch and Budget, and the founder is Pamela Capelad, who is incredible. And part of her financial planning service model incorporates group coaching. And this is great specifically for folks who might not be able to afford to work with a financial planner on a one-on-one basis. But instead, she has this group coaching model that offers financial planning as sort of on a discounted fee. It gives them access to planning services on a group level. So they automatically have a community that they can work with, and they have that group accountability. And it just makes her financial planning, again, more accessible to folks. I would recommend going on her website. Again, the firm's name is Brunch and Budget. And take a look at how she has incorporated group financial planning coaching as part of her service model, and see if that's something you would be interested in emulating in your service model.
Great. That sounds awesome. All right, our next question. How do I bring more sizzle to my client update meetings? I feel mine
Mm,
are somewhat boring when we get into talking about their investments and insurance. I love that sizzle.
yeah, me too. That's an incredible point. Whoever asked that, thank you so much. Client meetings can be boring. Talking about asset allocation, investment performance, or long-term care insurance, those are boring topics. So a few ideas I have for you. First off, like if we were working together, one thing that I would encourage you to do is to look at sort of your meeting process. So once the meeting has been confirmed, date and time, what is your process? What happens? What I encourage members to do is once the meeting date and time has been established, there should be an email that goes out confirming the meeting, sending the client sort of a rough draft of an agenda, highlighting some of the points you want to be talking about in that meeting. But it should also include an invitation to invite that client to include on the agenda things that they want to talk about, things that are important to them. I find that when clients are talking more about what is important to them as opposed to us talking about what we think is important, they're going to be more engaged. A second piece to this is, you know how they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. It is true, and I find that when you incorporate some type of visual aid, whether it's pics, graphs, or some type of visual representation of your work, that can also make client meetings more engaging. One of the ways that my last firm was able to do this is when we had a client meeting, we would invite the client into the conference room, and up on the wall, we had a flat screen television where we would have eMoney, which was our financial planning software, up on the screen. And so instead of printing out a financial plan, the client's financial plan, for example, we'd actually have the financial plan up in eMoney showing on the screen. And whenever we would talk about making adjustments to the plan, we would do a live adjustment to the plan on their screen. So we would take that client through the Monte Carlo simulation live. All right. And we find that that was a great way to engage clients because one, it gives them a front row seat of the financial planning software we use. And it just really engages them as they get to see live how their financial plan changes if we make certain tweaks to this or we do that. So that could be another way that you do make the meetings more engaging. I don't know if you're meeting with clients in person or virtually. If you're doing virtually, you can just simply share your screen and do something similar with the client. And then a third piece to this, I would say, to make client meetings more interesting or to add sizzle is to make sure that the meetings don't feel like meetings. Your client is probably already in enough meetings as it is. But if you make the meeting more conversational, I think they could become more engaging. And the one way that you could do that is by asking lots of open-ended questions. And then when you ask the questions, sit there, be quiet, and listen deeply to what the client is telling you. I think that could create just more deep, fruitful conversations and can make your client meetings more engaging. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, that was great, Kathleen. So, our next one, we have someone that would like to know, do you only offer coaching for XYPN members?
Currently, yes. You have to be a part of the network in order to get coaching.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, what kind of resources do you offer or do you recommend for folks? I mean, are there books or podcasts or blogs that you follow, to stay on top of how the service model area might be changing, or like how did you refine this for yourself, or what do you follow to keep on top of it?
Yeah, I follow a lot of folks. Kitsis is number one. He has written extensively on creating and refining service models. XYP, the XYPN blog, we have a lot of blog posts, which we're going to share at some point within this presentation on building and refining a service model. There's a woman by the name of Cherie Spiller, and she has her own firm where she focuses totally on helping financial planning firms increase their efficiencies and build out their service models. I follow a lot of her work as well. And so those are some of the resources that I tap into to learn to increase my knowledge around this stuff. So I would recommend those resources to you as well.
Great. Those sound perfect. Well, Kathleen, we got through all of our questions that were submitted before and the ones that we got during the presentation. Anything that you'd like to add before we wrap up today?
Not really. Just thank you for coming to the webinar. I hope you got a lot of value out of today, and I hope to see you part of the network soon.
Absolutely. So I just want to mention that if you are interested in having a conversation with me or another member of the XYPN sales team, please find the link in the chat that we're going to put there to find a time that works best for you. Also, when you click back to the lobby at the top left of your screen, you will see a feedback survey pop up when you leave the webinar. You could just please take a moment to complete that. We would just love to know what you thought. So that's it, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope to see you again next month, and I hope that you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you.